Hi, how are you? My name is Diana Mancilla and I'm with the History Center. I hope you guys are having an awesome time at home. Today we're going to learn about Cinco de Mayo, which a lot of us are familiar with this holiday, but today we're going to learn about what we're really celebrating. So what is Cinco de Mayo? Cinco de Mayo is a Mexican holiday that commemorates the victory of the Mexican army over an invading French army at the Battle of Puebla in 1862, which, by the way, Battle of Puebla is actually the national name for Cinco de Mayo as a holiday in Mexico, which means La Batalla de Puebla. Puebla is a state in Mexico, and at the time, it was the only entrance and access to the Mexico City, which was the capital of the country. It is not what many people mistakenly believe. Mexico's Independence Day is not our Independence Day. Mexico's Independence Day is on September 16, and it will happen actually like 50 years before this battle took place. Even though the Mexican army was eventually defeated, La Batalla de Puebla became a patriotic symbol of Mexico's unity and courage. This victory sent a message to the world that Mexico was willing to defend itself against foreign intervention to remain a free country. It is a day marked by many Mexicans and those with Mexican ties as an important patriotic and now cultural event. It represents a lot of the Mexican heritage. La Batalla de Puebla happened during a chaotic period of time in Mexico's history. Mexico has gained independence from Spain in 1821, but a series of political differences, takeovers, and wars, including the Mexican-American War in 1846 to 1848, and the Mexican Civil War of 1857 through 1860, followed the independence, leaving Mexico in bankruptcy. Mexico was unable to make payments on a large accumulated debts with the British, Spanish, and French. In 1861, July 17, Mexican president, which a name was Benito Juarez, issued a statement to suspend all foreign debts for 2 years, but promised after this time the payments will resume. This directly affected the British, Spanish, and of course the French, which after the end of the overcoming of the French 5 years later, he became very famous with this quote. This was the quote that he stated: "The freedom from Mexico in the second independence from the French, which says, among individuals as among nations, respect for the rights of others is peace." This is highly taken as a pride quote even nowadays in Mexico. The British, Spanish, and French reacted by inviting Mexico back in those times to force them to continue payments by any means, which they decided to invade in Mexico. The British and the Spanish worked out a deal with Mexico and left, but the Emperor Napoleon III persisted to take over to expand his empire to Mexico. In 1862, the French army advanced to Mexico City, which this is what takes place for our Cinco de Mayo, which in Puebla, it was the only access to Mexico City, as we stated before. Approximately 4,700 Mexican soldiers, both military and armed civilians of Mestizo and Zapotecos natives, waited for 7,000 French military soldiers, which makes a huge difference because they were fully military trained. Mexican troops were led by General Ignacio Zaragoza and Porfirio Diaz. The French general ordered a frontal assault on Puebla, which at the time the Diaz troops was making their way to the battle, Zaragoza soldiers held their position and forced the French to retreat. The Mexican victory, La Batalla de Puebla, stopped the French invasion in Mexico for that one time, which it was expected by everyone to be lost because of the difference on the soldiers. Ignacio Zaragoza was very enthusiastic and wrote back to Benito Juárez: "Puede ser que ellos sean el mejor ejército del mundo, pero nosotros somos los mejores hijos de México," which means it might be that they are the best army in the world, but we are the best children of Mexico. That phrase in itself, it defines the courage and the pride of these Mexican children at the time. Next, we're going to learn about how, unfortunately for Mexico, the victory was short-lived. As the news of the battle made it to Napoleon, he sent more troops, for approximately 30,000 soldiers, to attempt a second invasion of Mexico. 1 year later, the French finally defeated Mexican army and took over Mexico City. Maximiliano, how it was known, was crowned as the Emperor of Mexico on April 10, 1864. Both he and his wife immersed themselves in Mexico's culture and changed their name to the Spanish equivalent, and they were known as El Emperador Maximiliano y la Emperadora Carlota. The final victory for Mexico came after 5 years. Once the U.S. Civil War was over, the U.S. government recognized Benito Juárez as the legitimate president of Mexico, and France withdrew its military. Without France's military support, Maximilian was captured and executed on June 19, 1867. So Cinco de Mayo became a national holiday on May 9, when President Benito Juárez declared La Batalla de Puebla, or La Batalla del Cinco de Mayo, which means the Battle of Puebla or the Battle of Cinco de Mayo, a national holiday, primarily celebrated more enthusiastically in the state of Puebla and in Mexico City, and we can assume why. Military parades, presidential speeches, and battle reenactments to honor the heroes and the fallen of the battle are very popular expression of celebration on this day, especially on these two regional areas, as well as folkloric dancing representations, mariachi music is present, and other festive activities. Accordingly to each region, mole poblano is considered to be the official dish of the holidays because it is a national traditional dish eaten in Puebla, Mexico, even nowadays. Even though it's been a tradition in California for a long time, when back in 1863, some Mexican miners in the towns of Colombia broke into a celebration as they hear Mexicans were resisting French invasion back at home. It was not until during the mid-20th century that the celebrations in the United States became among Mexican immigrants a way of encouraging pride in their Mexican heritage. It also took a place in American history as Cinco de Mayo became very closely associated with the Chicano rights movement in the United States during the 1960s and 1970s. Under the President Bush administration in 2005, Cinco de Mayo was recognized as a national holiday in the United States. La Batalla de Puebla became the symbol of courage, unity, and patriotic pride that restored Mexico's confidence and overcome political division to resist invasion and stay as one free nation. This confidence became the morality that drove Mexico to a final victory, overthrowing the French government 5 years later after their invasion. Thank you for joining us today, and happy Cinco de Mayo. Feliz Cinco de Mayo a todos. Vamos a celebrar. Gracias.
Hello, my name is Sophie. I'm an intern here at the Northeast Georgia History Center, and I'm a big fan of crafts and dolls and toys. I just love all that kind of stuff. So today what we'll be doing is a little Cinco de Mayo themed craft, which will be a mini piñata. So I have structured this craft so that you can work alongside me from home, but I am going to have to use some TV magic to make things go a little bit faster, just so you don't have to watch me like cut out a piece of cardboard. So if you start to fall behind, you know, don't get stressed, don't be frustrated. I've made the craft so that so it'll go a little bit quicker. All right, so I'll be using a pattern that I made, and you can find on the Facebook page. It's 2 little pages right here. When printing your pattern, just to make sure that both pages print to the same scale. So this is printed to 90% scale, and it'll make a piñata that's about 8 inches. But if you wanted, you could print it at 50, and you could get a really cute little baby one. But just make sure both pages are the same size so that your pieces will match up better. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out one piece. And if you're following along, you can do the same. So this piece right here is the body. And this is the most important piece because it's what gives your piñata that characteristic shape. All right, I'll just cut out a little bit of it. So, in this side you're going to cut two, so you can have both sides of your piñata. After you have your piece cut out, you're going to trace it onto cardboard. I've structured this craft so that you can use things from around your house, since it's a little hard to get out of the house these days. So one type of cardboard you can use is a shipping box. I don't know about you, but I have plenty of those lying around. Or you can also use a recycled, this right here is a graham cracker box. So any kind of cardboard will do. The only thing is that if you use a thicker cardboard, it will make your piñata a little bit more sturdy. This one is the thicker cardboard. Or if you use, oh, he fell. Or if you use a thinner cardboard, he'll be a little bit bendier, but he'll also be easier to cut. So we're going to go ahead and trace the part that I cut out. There we go. And you're going to do this for your two side pieces and for all your other pieces. So there are 6 pieces total. There's the 2 on the side. There's 3 of these. They're all the same shape, and that's going to be used for the face, the chin, and the rear. Then we have 1 piece for the belly. And then we have 1 big long piece that will be used for the back of his head and his back. So once you have all 6 of those pieces cut out, you're going to, or traced, you're going to cut them out on your cardboard. And this right here, if you've seen the supply list, you'll notice there's a box cutter. This is where you would be using the box cutter. But with a thinner cardboard, you can go ahead and use scissors. If you are doing this craft with children, just use your discretion on which tools are safe for them to handle. And when using a box cutter, you don't have to try to get it all cut in one go. You can score it, which is just kind of lightly following the line. And then, just keep on going until you have it out safely. And of course, you can cut on a mat or another piece of cardboard so that you don't destroy your table, your kitchen table. All right. So while you guys are cutting and tracing, I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory on the piñatas. So there are similar traditions across the world, but piñatas are heavily associated with Mexico. They've had a lot of ceremonial significance, with early ones being used for harvest celebrations, because, they're filled with goodies. And later on, they were adapted for religious ceremonies by missionaries. But nowadays, piñatas, especially in America, are very popular at birthday parties. The traditional piñata is a 7-pointed star. But nowadays, the kinds that you'll see at parties are shaped like a cartoon character. So, you have an ocean-themed party, so your piñata's a fish. So that's mostly what we have nowadays. So ours is a donkey, which is, I think, one of the shapes people are very familiar with. I wanted to make a donkey because it's just always been my favorite shape, and I think it's really cute, and it'll be a fun little friend for your table. Otherwise, for the pieces, here's where the TV magic comes in. They're all cut out. Otherwise, for the pieces, I have made some of them a little bit longer deliberately, and that's so that you'll be able to trim them to your liking. Sometimes if your cardboard is really thick, it might make the pieces match up differently, so the pieces are longer just to give you some room. And also that lets you be more creative with your piñata, and it lets you make it more your own. So, all right. So first, now we've got everything traced, we've got everything cut. We're going in super speed. Oh, that's right. So another reason that the piñata is kind of shaped like this, I didn't make him very round or curvy, because if you have straight lines, it'll be easier to cut and easier to glue together. So even though the round shape is like really cute, I think that this is a really good place to just get you started. And if you really like making this one that's very simple, then maybe you'll want to expand into trying to make a round one, trying to make different shapes. Honestly, there's so many things that you can do just with this kind of craft that it's just good to once you get started, you can just go. But now we're at the point where we're ready to glue. So to glue our piñata, I will be using a hot glue gun. This is another case where if you're working with children, you're going to want to use some discretion. This stuff it glues instantly, but it's very hot. I've worked with it for a long time, so I'm kind of used to it, but it really it'll hurt you. So the first piece that I'm going to start with is the belly. This is your smallest piece. And the belly is going to go right here into this little area. You'll see that I have written on the pieces what each piece is, and that's just so that I don't get them mixed up. And also, as I make the piñata, I'm putting the writing on the inside just so that it won't show up. So there's one side of the belly. Now we're going to use some more glue. Get the other side on. If you were making a larger piñata, or maybe you're noticing that he's a little bit unstable at this point, you can put in something right here in the middle to keep it together. I made a smaller one and I used drinking straws, so I just cut them short and put them in the middle. You could also roll up pieces of paper so that you'll kind of have something strong to put in the middle. I think that since I'm using the shipping box, this one will be good without a brace. You can also put some glue right here in the seams just to make sure he stays together. So there we are. We already have a shape. If you really wanted to, you could just stop here and just say, no one look at it from the front. But we're going to go ahead and add more. So the next piece I'm going to do is the back piece. And right here in the curve of his neck, you're going to want to bend your cardboard. If your cardboard is really thick or really thin and you're having trouble bending it, you can just go ahead and snip it right here. All it's going to do is add a new place for you to do glue. But we'll go ahead. Glue it up. Hot glue has just a couple moments where it's a little bit malleable, so you can go ahead and use that time to really get it in the right place. Just, of course, be careful because it is hot. All right. So now we have both of our sides hot glued together. This is what I was talking about with there being some extra room. So if you wanted to leave it on there and have him have a little tail, that would be cute. But I'm going to go ahead and snip it. There we go. You don't have to worry if it's a little bit messy because this is going to get covered up. You want it to be smooth enough that it won't make things look lumpy. But if there's some problems, then you can trust they'll get covered. It's a very forgiving craft, which is why I think it's a good way to just have some fun. So next we'll be using these pieces that are all the same shape, the ones that you cut 3 of. And the first one is going to go on his rear. So we'll go ahead and glue up the sides of that. There we go. That one fit just right. See, hot glue can be kind of messy with all the little strings. They look like spider webs. Maybe you could have a Halloween donkey. He can be anything he wants to be. I really do. I do think we should just use piñatas for every occasion, like a wedding. Just put a veil on it. All right, so the next part that we're going to do is the front. There we go. The pieces are the same, but this one says front, and he's got another little bend right here underneath his chin. So I'm kind of gonna eyeball where to bend it. There we go. And see, there's some extra place for you to snip it off in case you bend it at a weird place. I was talking last night with a friend about how my glue gun is, I love the giant glue guns. Normally the ones you'll see are the glue will be a lot smaller, but ever since I started using a giant glue gun, it really changed me. You get more glue out of it, and I feel really cool using it. But of course with the smaller glue gun, you'll be totally fine. And just make sure you buy the right size glue sticks. Alrighty, so now we have his front all glued up. I left the text on the wrong side, but that's okay. Alright, so the last piece we're going to add is his face. And the face has 2 bends in it. So we're just going to, or snippets if you find that easier to just go ahead and cut it. But we'll be bending the cardboard. Sort of makes like an accordion shape or a Z. And there you go. It fits right in there. And see, this is the part where if your donkey was round, you would have to cut it and glue it differently to kind of fit into the curve of his face. But since your donkey is very square, then you don't have to worry about that. So we're going to put glue all along the edges. Though I might snip this one part off. And you're going to slide it right into the curvy parts, or the corners. And now you have your piñata. So you can go ahead and snip off any parts where it's too long. Give him a little haircut. Oop. Now this is the part where you're technically
live, but let's just hold for a second.
Okay.
I'm going to let everybody know to go to the right link. Okay, all right.
All right, we're back.
Yes, we are back. I'm just going to let people in the comments know. Let's hold for just another minute.
Okay. I'll have to re-glue.
Okay, I think we are ready.
Okay, so we lost our connection for a minute, but the donkey is still here. He's still safe, and he can't wait to have feet. So I'm going to go ahead and re-glue this part at the bottom of the foot. So hot glue dries very fast, which is good or bad, depending on how fast you are. All right, so I cut out this little scrap piece of cardboard. We're just going to put that on his foot. There we go. And then to make things easy on myself, I'll just trim it to size. My scissors don't like that hot glue. All right, so that fills in his foot. And then you would go ahead and do it on his other foot and inside his legs. And once again, this part, you don't have to do it, but just if you want your, oh, and also on top of his ear. I would recommend always doing it on top of his ear so that it'll be easier to decorate. Oh, I made it a little bit too small. That's okay though. But this is a great way to get rid of all of your extra boxes. Can make something cute out of them. All right, so there's we've covered up his ear, and if you wanted to, you could like cut a little place in his back. You could put some candy in there. Maybe you could use it as a piggy bank. Of course, if you do that, make sure that you plug up the bottom so everything doesn't just come pouring out. But there we are. So now we have the body of your piñata. Here's a smaller one. So we have a mommy and a baby. And now for the fun part, which is decorating. So this is the part that I think anybody can do and anybody can have fun with. So let's see, where'd my strip of paper go? I'm going to show you how to make fringes. And fringes are very easy to make. When I first made these, I held the piece of paper and made each fringe individually. You don't have to do that. All you have to do is get a strip of paper, and the paper that I'm using, this right here is actually packing paper that I got probably in this shipping box. You can also use tissue paper, like the paper that you'll use to wrap a gift. This is my first choice. But since it's a little bit hard to get out of the house right now, I wanted to use what I had on hand. And the only tissue paper I had on hand was these very pastel colors. Typically, though, piñatas are, they're festive, so they'll be very brightly colored. But I did just cut some of this out to show you guys. Also, this piñata is made using that. And I think he looks pretty nice. He's kind of got some desert colors. But you can see right here where I used the packing paper. And this part right here is actually packing paper that I just colored with a marker. So if you only have packing paper, if you only have construction paper, if you only have computer paper, you can just go ahead and color it. And I think it kind of gives a nice, sort of washed look, sort of like it's been dyed or something. So that's a cool way that you can just work with what you have. But there you go. But to make fringes, you're just going to take a strip of your paper and you're going to fold it in half, and then you're going to fold it again. Honestly, just fold it as many times as you can. And then once you have it folded, you're just going to cut little snippets in it. Make sure that you stop before you get too close to the top, or when you unfold it, the whole thing will just fall apart. That happened to me a couple times, when I made the smaller ones especially. And then you're going to want to get right here where it's bent too, so that you'll get snippets everywhere. And there we go. So now that we have our fringe, it's time to decorate our piñata so that he won't be naked. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to start at the bottom. It sort of seems like it would make sense to start at the top, but if you start at the top, you're going to glue it and put it down, and then you're going to end up gluing your other fringes. So definitely start at the bottom. And I'm going to be using a glue stick. I noticed that with this thinner tissue paper, the glue stick, the glue has a bigger chance of making everything get kind of tangled up. So if you don't glue a lot, and you really want just a relaxing experience, then you can go ahead and use a thicker paper, and you won't have to worry about things getting tangled up. There we go, there's our first layer. I'm going to make it easy on myself and just trim. Now he's kind of got like fringy boots on. So there we go. I'm going to do another layer of brown. If you want to finish decorating your piñata really quickly, then I would recommend doing big strips and big fringes. If you want a lot of texture and you want to squeeze in as many colors as possible, then you can do thinner strips, and that'll give you more room. So right there, we've got some colors in. Next I'm going to use some of the tissue paper, add some lavender. This is where you want to be careful, like I said. If your fingers have glue on them, you don't want to get everything tangled up. So there we've got some purple. I'll do a strip of blue. You'll notice that I cut some of these out ahead of time, just so I can show you how I'm decorating it. We've got the blue. I think he's looking quite nice. And then, oh, let's do some white too. And then we've got white. Now this part, I threw this part in just to be kind of add some extra fun. I noticed that cellophane and holographic stuff is really popular right now. So if you have any cellophane lying around, you can put that on your piñata and make it sparkly. The hot glue, or not the hot glue, the glue stick won't really hold the cellophane, so you are going to have to use hot glue for that. You could also use Mylar, maybe if you have like a Mylar balloon lying around, anything that's kind of shiny. Oh yeah, that looks nice. There we go. So that'll give you some extra fringe, extra texture. You could do the whole piñata like that. You could just do it at the top, just at the bottom. This is the part where you really have the opportunity to make it about you, and just do whatever you want to do. So there's some fringes on our piñata. And then we'll pretend that he's all decorated. unless I can speed decorate him. Actually, you know what? I'll go ahead and finish this one side, and I'll tell you guys a little bit about my own experience with piñatas. So, growing up, we always had them at parties, and there you go. Well, there's traditions in the way that you break the piñata. So, the way that I'm most familiar with, it's like the most chaotic way possible, is you blindfold the person, and then you spin them around, and then you give them the stick, and then everyone backs up. And the piñata will be tied like in a tree, and you have someone with a rope, and they pull it. So you have this blindfolded, dizzy person like trying to hit it, and someone else is like pulling it out of the way, and everybody who's not hitting the piñata, they'll shout at them, like go up, or go left. You sort of guide the person. I did also find out that there's songs that you'll sing while you spin the person or while you hit the piñata. There's also like a certain number of times that you'll spin the person, and that stuff that goes more back to the folklore, the folk traditions, and the religious traditions, which aren't as popular these days. But those are things that exist. But and then of course, we would always start the piñata. We would always start with the little kids, because they're not very strong, so you don't really expect them to break it. And then we slowly move up to the older kids and the adults. And that a piñata is formidable when you have to bring in the adults just to break it. I remember one year at a birthday party, we had a fish, and this fish was indestructible. There was nothing we could do to destroy this fish. So we eventually had to take it off the tree and break it that way. There's also a story that my mom tells about how my grandpa made a piñata out of paper mache. Like, for instance, the one we're making is cardboard, but paper mache is a little bit of a more traditional way. Of course, the really traditional way is a clay pot, but people don't do it that much these days. It can be a little bit dangerous when it breaks. But the paper mache one that my grandpa made, apparently he made it so well that it wouldn't break, so they had to open it up with a saw. So I've never had that kind of experience with one, but I have met a piñata that's a little tough to break. All right, so right here we now have one side fully covered. Of course, with the one you're making, you're going to want to cover it all the way, but this is just for a demonstration. And I think the final step to any craft should be googly eyes. So I picked up some googly eyes just for this, because googly eyes make everything better. And we're just gonna put that right there. So now, that's a little bit high. There we go. So now your piñata, he's got some character, and if you want, you can add eyelashes. You can add a smile. You could, maybe you want your piñata to be a pirate. You could put a little eye patch on him. You could put bows on it. You could tie a ribbon around it. There's so many different ways that you can decorate this. Here's one I made earlier. I didn't have googly eyes, so I just cut out a little eye and drew it on there with a marker. So that's a way that you can do it if you don't have googly eyes or you don't want to get some. Here's one. I'm particularly proud of this one. I made it so he looks like he has pants on. And he's also angry, because I thought that would make him look cute. So here we have our angry pants piñata. We have our googly eyes piñata. And we have our first piñata. So we have a whole family. And that is your walkthrough on this very simple craft. This is my first time doing something like this, so I apologize if I was a little bit awkward or some parts are hard to understand, but that's our craft. Otherwise, about me, I do make all kinds of crafts. I do a lot of needle felting. I make costumes. I have a shop on Etsy where I make little dolls. I believe Miss Libba has put that in the comments. So if you would like to visit that, you can. Overall, though, I think crafting is a really important thing for young people and for older people, too. When I was a kid, I loved making crafts, and it always felt like it was supposed to be just a thing for kindergartners, but it's not. It's, like piñatas are folklore, piñatas are tradition. They're part of the cultural heritage of Mexico. So just because you're older, or, if you're a kid right now, it doesn't mean that crafts are something you have to give up. It's something that you can keep doing. You can try to make a career of it, or you can do it just for fun. It's something that I really encourage people to do more of. But so that's it for me. Thank you very much for watching, and have a happy Cinco de Mayo.